We got about as many as we're going to get over the window. We're recording? Cool. Get some folks.
Slow down, Sam. It's egregious. Yep. All the way over? Yep. Folks are going to make their way over, and what's going on? Hello there from the internet. I'm going to use a microphone that's obviously not to project in here. It's to make sure the folks that are tuning in remotely can hear well, and the recording has started. Yes? So the recording is going to sound good as well, and I get to feel special holding a microphone. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Good. Yeah, sweet. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is the sound coming out there? Oh, you weren't kidding. Cool. So, oh, sorry. Man, technology is cool. You can broadcast to the other side of the internet as long as there's not multiple speakers in the same room. I'm gonna wait. We're good? We're good. Sweet. Awesome. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? There we go. Cool. So thank you for coming to Town Hall. Thanks for taking time at the end of your day. Sam's gonna keep us to an hour. Want to be respectful for everybody's time. But conversations like this are super important. They're a big part of Indy Hall's history. How many people have not been to an Indy Hall Town Hall in the past? Okay, cool. So some newbies, welcome, which means everyone else has been to a town hall in the past and has probably gotten to see different variations, iterations, things that have happened over the years. And I think I want to start using it to set a little bit of context before we get into some sharing from some other folks in the community, and then a little bit of brainstorming for next week's Reboot. I've been thinking a bunch, actually before we get into what I've been thinking about, I would love for you guys to be able to take a minute or two to maybe meet somebody in the room who you don't recognize. Is there anyone who can look around and maybe someone they don't either know name or haven't had a conversation with? I'm gonna give everyone like 2 or 3 minutes, just like do that like awkward icebreaker thing. Say hello to someone you haven't met yet, and then we'll come back after that. All right. I wanna thank you for indulging a silly, kind of awkward icebreaker. I want to ask sort of a silly, awkward question. I want to give a couple of folks an opportunity to think and share and just reflect on the question: what does Indy Hall mean to you? And this will make a little bit of sense in a minute. But if when I say the question, what does Indy Hall mean to you? That could be the place. That could be an experience you had. Is there a moment where you went, aha, I think I get what Indy Hall is about? Is there anybody who has a moment that comes to mind, or a story that you've shared with other people that you would maybe want to take a minute or two to share with the room? Yeah, I'm gonna hand you the microphone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember I was working on a personal project that was really difficult or had been difficult for me in the past, and then like, over the course of like 6 hours or 8 hours of grinding away on it, like I asked somebody at my pod one question that really helped, and like I leaned over to somebody else and there was another 5 minutes that really helped, and like just everywhere I looked there was like someone that I could just get quick feedback from. And then like when I look back on that moment, like a lot of those people are friends now.
Thank you. And for those who don't know you, what's your name? Nicole. Thanks, Nicole. Any
Also, anyone who wants to chip in online, I'm on Slack, so I can like translate for you.
Oh, awesome. Yes. Just to repeat what Sam said, if anybody's following along live online, wants to chime in Slack in general, or message Sam directly, she can sort of proxy to the room as well. Anybody else have a little thought or anecdote they'd like to share? Pam.
I was going to share how I usually try to explain Indy Hall to people, is that I think of it like my moose lodge, but it's also like if you imagine an office, but where most of the people there, at least, like you don't generally work with, so that you can't ever have like work beef with them. So it's really nice. Like you never have to like be mad at them for not filling out the TPS report. And that's really awesome.
Thank you. The best parts of having coworkers without some of, not all, but some of the worst parts of having coworkers. Awesome. Anybody else? What about one of our returning alumni who maybe have some older thoughts, some original? I'm putting you on the spot, Johnny Bellata. Yeah, I can do that.
So you asked to sum up in a word, and I would say the word is opportunity, and not in the selfish, greedy, Gordon Gekko sort of opportunity. But Indy Hall was one of the first places where someone looking for something that I could offer, they got up and shouted out, "Hey, I need someone to design an icon." And there was only developers in the room, and I was the only graphic designer. And I said, I'll give it a shot. And I gave it a shot, and it launched a bunch of opportunities for me. So I would say opportunity always comes up in my mind when I think of Indy Hall.
Anybody want to do one more? Burning on your lips? No? Okay. So when I think about why this place exists, why we got to today, it was all of the things that you said and a lot more. And it really started with not knowing who my neighbors were, not knowing where I could go to find people who I had things in common with. And for all the things that have changed about Indy Hall over the years, the community has grown and evolved. People in the community have grown and evolved. The kinds of people that show up have grown and evolved. And now we have new physical space that allows us to grow and evolve as well. It all comes back to the same core sort of reason to be, like why here and not anywhere else? Like we're all people who could choose to work from anywhere. Why not, or why do we choose to be here? And one of the things that I'm thinking about a lot as we go into the conversation tonight, which is a bit about place, it is about how we want to use our entire space with this new addition, but to sort of reaffirm some of those reasons that we're here and remember that while the space can be turned into anything, the space is an empty shell, that knowing why we're here, and I think maybe having more conversations together with our colleagues, with people who we haven't met yet before, when we're out on the street talking to people at Indy Hall, I think one of the interesting things as we moved into this building is I get way more questions about the space and how the space is, and I try really hard to shift the conversation to how the community is and who's here and what's going on. And I want to kind of use tonight as a reminder that while we're working through questions about how we use the space, that context is still really, really important. So with that in mind, I think one of the main things that we want to be able to do is take some of the feedback that I've gotten over the last couple of weeks and months as we've built out this expansion. The biggest question that I'm getting is like, so what is it? What are you going to do with it? And the way I continue to frame it for folks is this new expansion is not what it's about. It's about the entire footprint of Indy Hall with this as now part of it, and thinking about what we've learned about what works in the space that we have, what doesn't work, or what we want to keep, what we want to evolve, and who's here and who's coming, because we've got some interesting things that have been changing. Even the fact that, back when Johnny was saying it was a lot of the conversations we had were, person-to-person interactions, people are growing teams. People are bringing on additional people to their team. We have, for those of you who've maybe heard rumors but haven't heard it from the horse's mouth, there's an alumni team, Myclin, which is, if you guys want to put your hands up, right? So Johnny, Jim, Chris, and Falcon James, as well as a couple other teammates, and they're sharing space with another team that was teammates who met at Indy Hall, friends and family of Indy Hall. They've been sharing an office just around the corner. And when we had the opportunity to take this space, we had the option to create this little annex over here. And over the years, we've had lots of conversations about what happens when a team gets a little too big for Indy Hall itself. Well, where do they go? Where do they end up if they still want to be able to be a part of the community? And so I think Myclin's homecoming and the I'm from the future, the traffic safety store team's homecoming, I'm thinking a lot about what does it mean when we've got some graduates from the community who are coming back that are bringing back not just history, but experience, and what does that present in terms of an opportunity for us to be leveling up as a community as well? Where am I on our itinerary here, Sam?
We're around like here.
Got it. Okay. So about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, I sent out a survey asking about how people work related to sound. And a lot of questions have been about, as teams grow, people need to be able to talk to their coworkers. People are on phone calls. Different kinds of work styles happen when you've got a team. And if I'm completely honest, we've not been really good at adapting to that. And especially in this new space, when we moved in here a year ago, we all kind of moved in, and somebody said the other day, it took a little while for the dust to settle, but things just kind of settled where they are, and they haven't changed much. But we also haven't really done a really good job of acknowledging some of the challenges of how they've settled. And a common theme that we've been hearing is people don't exactly know where they can go to get the kind of work done that they need to do. Is it okay for me to sit next to my teammates and have a conversation, or is that disturbing people around me? Where can I go to have some heads down focus time and not have to maybe change locations 2 or 3 times throughout the day because I can't find a place where I'm not going to have my work interrupted? So the way I've been thinking about designing the overarching sort of idea for as we redesign the entire space is thinking about those comfort levels, and that's sound, that's dialogue. We had a great conversation the other day about the physical elements of that as well. And I think if we start thinking about Indy Hall still as one place, one entire place, but more of a continuum that supports more different kinds of people doing similar kinds of work, but still coming here for the same reasons. That's the key. We're going to grow, we're going to evolve, but the reasons we come here are still to be around other people, to be able to know where to go to meet people who can help us, who can unstick us, who can push us to get a little bit better at what we do, and to help introduce us and inspire us to new things beyond that. So as we head into Reboot next week, this is probably going to be a little bit different from Reboots in the past, where it's been a little bit more like moving. This is a little more thinking about improvements. how we take advantage of the entire space, what things can we move and rearrange, and make it easier for people to find people who are working the way that they work and to find a place that suits the needs of their work without having to bounce around the entire space throughout the course of the day. Does that make sense? Cool. We had some folks that I think wanted to share some thoughts on some of those design principles, in particular, thinking about this space as part of that. Been questions about, do we call it a quiet car? Do we call it study hall? I think is a name that a lot of people really like. Focuses on, a type of work, a focus work. And it also sort of conjures an idea of a positive energy of coming in to heads down, hustle, get some work done, and still be able to get up, walk across the room, and be able to bump into people, grab your cup of coffee, grab your cup of tea, have lunch in the kitchen, not be totally disconnected, but still have a place that is geared towards focus. Did we have somebody in particular that was going to be sharing that? Yeah. Do you want to come up and grab the mic?
Sure. My name is Abby. I'm a 3-day-a-week part-time member. A couple of us got together and talked about what this new space could potentially look like, given that there's this need, or this expressed need for a quiet space, a place where there's a slightly different set of expectations for working in the space. But like Alex said really well, there's still this continuum where you can access people and conversational areas. So a couple of the kind of core principles of the space that we talked about were the ability to have a space that is both visually quiet and kind of audibly quiet. Anyway, sounds quiet. And what that means. So one of the things is in this space, there's a little bit more of people have respect for each other's space, but there's a little bit more of a looser set of rules about, talking, having conversations near other people, or taking phone calls and that kind of thing. I certainly take phone calls in the open space, and I think in some cases that has been interrupting people. So I think in this space, thinking of this as kind of a library setting, where if you do know you need a call, or you do know that you want to converse with somebody about something, that you find one of the rooms here or move into the other space, but that it's a little bit, the quiet factor is a little bit more sacred over here. And I think a couple of the physical features that we talked about too were having different, very similar to over here, having different arrangements of furniture that lend themselves well to studying. A couple of people said that they go, like Rob mentioned that he goes to the law library to work sometimes, because there's these big tables kind of like this, very quiet space. He can go in the stacks and just kind of focus on what he needs to do. So recreating a little bit of that with maybe some big tables, doing clusters, pods, but maybe thinking about how it lends itself to more focused time. Standing desks too, but experimenting with this reboot with the arrangement of furniture. Also having kind of focusing on having it be visually quiet, meaning being very intentional about everything. So this side is super celebratory, and kind of over the years has gotten a little bit crazy with stuff. And I think if we can keep this side a little bit cleaner and sparser and more intentional, we talked about a couple ways of doing that. So and still kind of honoring the community that we have over here. So one of those things that we talked about was potentially doing, one of our community members is a textile designer, taking some of her textiles and framing them out and treating those as the sound proofing, but having to be very intentional and ordered, and but lend itself to the quiet factor as well. Yeah, I don't know if there was anything else.
I think one of the interesting challenges in this is a, thank you, Abby, that was awesome. Two interesting things I want to point out. One is this has been a long time coming conversation. It's had in sort of starts and stops and different times tried to introduce it. And I'm really excited and proud of the fact that a group of members organized around this, collected thoughts, and came up with a way to articulate it, not just to us, but to be able to share it and say, we know that we need something that is a little bit different than what we have, but still follows the sort of core principles of Indie Hall, which is super, super important, and that we can figure that out together. The other interesting challenge, and something that I think potentially has the ability to help through the rest of Indie Hall, is how we communicate this. I think having this over here is a little easier because you literally have a physical threshold to cross. And what I know we don't want to do is have an environment where people feel like they need to shush each other, have an environment where, you know, there's big red X's crossing over, you know, cell phones or people with open mouth. Like, there's a way to communicate this, to signal this, to both make a visual reminder, but also to remind each other, make it really easy to explain to new people coming through that a set of expectations. This is what this is great for. And if these are other things you need to do, here's the other place that you can do that. Does that make sense?
I think part of the whole physical stuff that we were talking about is making that very clear. Like, welcome to the quiet place. You're all welcome to be in the quiet place. And also just again, that's part of the visual thing, is like making it just immediately apparent when you come in here that this is the kind of space for that kind of work.
Yeah, totally. The other thing that I think a lot about, and relating to how we lay out furniture and things like that, in our existing space, we already have a couple of different kinds of zones, essentially, that are ranging from sitting at a desk that feels a little more like sitting at a desk, frankly, to the shared breakout tables, the round cafe tables, couches, and we have the ability to add more other things. But I feel like in each sort of section, if you imagine Indie Hall sort of divided into thirds, sort of this end, the part that crosses over the middle, and then the sort of other end of the L along the 4th Street side, is almost as three distinct zones. Each one should have a lot of the same elements in them. They should have desks that you can go to full-time or flex. They should have maybe breakout tables of different shapes and sizes, couches, etc. So anything that you would want to do in one of them, you don't feel like if I want to sit in a couch, I have to go to one end or the other. So really is about choosing the place that really fits kind of the vibe and the mood of what you need on that day, that point in time, or for the work that you're doing. At the other end of that spectrum, because like I said, teams are a part of this as well. And those are formal teams. We've got people that are literally on the same company, as well as people teamed up on projects, ad hoc or on long term. Having a place where you know you can sit next to your teammates, I realize is super, super valuable. And in the past, our stance has always been, it's actually really valuable for teammates to not sit next to each other. And for people that are on teams that have heard us say this before, I'll reinforce it, but just in case you haven't heard our thought process on it was, again, the reason to be at Indie Hall is to be able to meet other people other than the ones who you would necessarily meet all the time. And once you're on a team, the odds of you turning to your own teammates over the people around you starts to shift. And so we've encouraged people, look, if you can, try and sit apart. And when you need to come together as a team, use one of the common spaces or a conference room or whatever it might be. I'm also realizing that that doesn't work all the time, whether it's when somebody is onboarding, when people are working on a particular project. So I think what we need to be doing is a little more experimenting and acknowledging and having conversations with all the people that are on teams, how each team works, having a space where it's okay for you to sit next to each other. And it's actually designed for that on purpose. But also you're around other teams. So there's the potential that you can help each other in different ways than maybe individuals themselves do. And it's just another band of what we've sort of always had, and refining a set of design principles that we had that were always in the best interest of the community and one particular kind of work style, which was working by yourself. So remember, Indie Hall was founded by people who are all working by themselves. And what we're learning is people are still lonely even when they have teammates. People still want to connect with other people when they have teammates. There's a lot of value in all the things that Indie Hall brings to individuals to teammates. And I think we can do that better than anybody else can. So all the people who are on teams that I've talked to about this, I've gotten great feedback, great ideas, and just the buy-in to want to do this in the spirit of Indie Hall. Everyone's here by choice. I said that before and I'll say it again. There's other places you can go to rent an office, to rent a desk. The people that are here and want to be here for a really specific reason. I'm really proud of that. And I want to encourage us to continue articulating that and learning from that, and how being at Indie Hall as a team can still bring the same kind of value, and how the team can bring the same kind of value that individuals have through our entire 10-year history. How am I doing on time? Cool. I feel like I've been talking a bunch. I would love to field some questions about any of the things that I've said. Nicole. Yes. Yeah. I think it's super important. I think I had the thought that it would be potentially good for it to be just flex, to encourage people to come in here and just choose the quiet space, but then still mix and mingle around. The flip side of that is having an entirely transient space makes it really hard to build a culture, makes it really hard for there to be any kind of consistency. I think it's really important for it to still be a welcoming space. Quiet doesn't mean cold. Quiet doesn't mean uninviting. I think it's really important that we get that right. And so part of getting that right includes not just a mix of having full-time and flex desks, but having full-time and flex people, being people that want to be over here to have quiet and focus, but to still be warm and welcoming and to smile when somebody sits down next to you. You don't have to say anything to smile, right? I think you still welcome people quietly. But yeah, absolutely. What else? What's up, Ben? Yeah. Yeah. Self-select it. Yeah. They say again? Yes. 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 Katie.
I was curious about if we're so we're talking a lot about kind of this new space, but I think this is kind of like the college company.
Correct.
It's a thing that's come up a lot kind of before I was really aware of this space or had stepped in here, like realizing how much space is over here. But it's still pretty small compared to the rest of the space. And I think that with the level of concern there's been around kind of distractions, so the idea of having my desk in here and kind of going and like doing the social chatty thing and then kind of escaping back to my desk, I could like to kind of get more head down on things. I could see as being more of a majority than minority wish in this space. I don't know if we wanted like if we're doing some kind of like polling, like to try to get kind of actual measures and numbers, but it seems to me that the idea of kind of quieting the work areas and like kind of having more specifics in designated. I don't want to be like this is the social area.
Yeah.
Having maybe a little less interspersed, or maybe like more center to the room is social, and then more outside the room. But it seems like there's something while we're having this conversation anyway. It seems like there's something that could be done in the entire rather than just at this.
Agreed. Totally agreed. I know Kathy had something, and then Amanda. Amanda, then yeah.
Well, I was thinking about what you said about kind of developing like more quiet spaces. I feel like one of the things that really affects me is actually addressing some of the things about phone calls, because it's super frustrating when you're trying to find a quiet place to work and there's like 4 people walking around having a phone call and 4 calls. Well, there's also kind of a self-perpetuating, like it gets into the vicious circle because you definitely see every single day people working in the phone booth kind of get focus time that are not on calls, and then you walk over there needing to take a call and nothing's available, so then you end up having to take a call in the main room, and then more people escaping to the phone room. So there's got to be something we can do.
I think you're really right on both counts. The survey was in my mind surprisingly balanced, and not that there was a more or less people who wanted one thing. It's that most people wanted the availability of both. And I think that using this as a starting place is going to be it's going to be easy to learn a little bit about what it's like, what's needed to create that. Does that help rebalance? And at the same time, I totally agree. What still needs to be done to adjust? I think there's the technicalities of I need to take a call and there's not a phone booth or a conference room. Sometimes we honestly, and I'm guilty of this as well, we just forget, right? Or we're just like in a moment, something happens and I thought the call was going to be 30 seconds and now it's been 20 minutes. Or having a conversation, I didn't even realize that I was talking loud enough that I'm bothering all of the people around me. So I think overall, I think we need to have a candid conversation as a community about that general awareness of who our neighbors are and how our own conversations around are affecting the people around us. Going back to that challenge in the past in our old space where we didn't have phone rooms, where we had a room that was echoey as all get out. The most common response we gave folks when they were having issues with sound levels around them, the most common thing I noticed is they didn't even know the name of the person who was potentially bugging them. And that's always a clue to me that we're not paying attention to who we're affecting because we don't even know who they are. I think that's something we could really stand to re-up on a more regular basis, even when it's not a formal event to do that. I think that's going to help address a lot of the underlying issues as we've grown as a community, as we've moved into this space where a lot of things are taken care of for us. So we don't spend as much time taking care of the environment together and therefore sort of bonding over that. I feel like we've lost a little bit of that touch, something that really helped solve those problems a bit more automatically than we've been able to in the last year and change. I'm gonna Sam and then Nicole and then Pam. I think I saw a hand over here too. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Radiating heat from the kitchen that impacts a lot of where the desks are. And so then your choices are like, don't work desks.
Right. Sam.
So one, I have stats if you like for the survey.
Yeah, sure.
We got as a response, we had 81 responses. How often does your work require consistent concentration or focus? 73% said often, 28% said sometimes. How often you need to have conversations with other people? 56 said sometimes, 23 said never, 21 said often, percent. And how often do you make phone or video calls as part of your workday? 48% said sometimes, 44% said often, and 7% said never. So that's the split. The other thing is I wanted to talk specifically and related to Pam's point about how we communicate the zones. Something that's could you turn around? Yeah. Something that I think is the underlying problem is there's not really that communication like Alex talked about. So if we're talking about having, 3 separate zones of like study hall, like general chat, but like please no phone calls or whatever, however we figure out to call it, and like more of a high chat zone, then how do we communicate this without it being like, hey, shh, or without it, I don't know. I want to make it very, very easy for people to make the choice to be where they want to be, and and have something very clear and easy to guide folks who are in that space so they don't feel like they have to police, but they also can have something to point to like, oh, hey, this is the study hall zone. I wasn't sure if you knew. that sort of thing.
We actually talked about that a little bit, and I think it came up with like you shouldn't in a quiet room like this for inclusive. You shouldn't have to tell people to quiet room with an understood rule, but it should be a totally perfectly acceptable to do so because everybody understands that that's stuff. So it's just it's just fun that we have each other. It's yeah, it can be like a oh my god, what am I gonna do? Stuff it.
And an aesthetic can also inform that. That like what like Abby like when we talked about it, like that having a different aesthetic so that you feel like you have moved into a different space. Like it's a variation on a theme. That like that it's like, oh, this is like quiet and peaceful. Whereas like and I think that that's something that we could definitely do in different areas of the space, because especially like over there, it's mostly all like noise or chaos. And thinking about how we can express use design to express what we want in space, so that people, without even thinking about it, are like, oh, that's not an appropriate behavior here.
I wanted to, so one thing, I don't think I would ever, knowing them or not, walk up to someone who was in the middle of a call and say, hey, could you keep it down? There's something very different. Like if someone's like in the middle of a meeting, I'm not gonna like say anything. And I'm not really that sensitive to it. There's something special. I want to make other people might feel differently about this, but I think there's a very large difference between a conversation between two physical people happening, or more people happening in one space, and a call. Yeah. There's something about how people project. There's something about hearing one side of a conversation and not hearing the other. It's so much more distracting to hear a call than to hear people talking. And I think that's an important thing about, like, you're not going to walk up to people who are just like saying, hey, good morning, like, how's it going, blah, 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 and be like, could you guys sit down? There's something special about meetings and phone calls. And I just want to make that clear, that we shouldn't, I don't think anyone's goal is like shushing people who are just talking to each other. It's also a lot easier to like kind of have people have that in their minds when it's not like, I don't have to just not talk.
The other thing that I haven't heard said heard from lots of individuals and as a theme is that there's a range of chaos to like a bit of like pleasant chaos and noise. Like there's a lot of places you could go and easily find quiet that aren't here, and a lot of people come here because there is a background, like the right amount of background noise, and that varies from person to person, which I think is what the key here is what is the amount of background activity that suits you for the work that you can do in general and at that point in time on that day, and having places where you can adjust for that. And I think even the conversation around things being over here, I think the idea is more that it's peaceful, not that it's silence. There's still a hum of humans and activity, and again, even like pleasantness, like laughter and giggling, not like cracking jokes necessarily, but like a pleasant like level is totally achievable if people want that.
Yeah, I started having memories of like the old space, and I think that like a major difference between the old space and this space is that I felt there was a lot more privacy space. Like there was like a time when I like discovered a desk at some point. It was like in the way, like in the back on the bottom floor, and I was like, oh, there's just a standing desk here that I didn't know about for a whole year. And I think that like creating a sense of like privacy, like for instance, I thought textile blocking thing is like a really great idea. Like trying to kind of recreate like carousel idea, but with something really beautiful. Like I think that would help. Like I don't know, the personality type of the people who come to Indy Hall. They want something social, but they're also like they have like a limit for that. Like they also want some like privacy.
Yeah.
People who work from home typically value that. So I think the aesthetic choices was like aiming for that idea, like value and privacy, really help in this particular.
And I think I didn't get it before, like textiles hanging down, creating kind of like little
walking areas.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think that a big thing too is visual distractions. Like is just seeing somebody pass or seeing something interesting happening in the corner, and like you are intrigued. it is pleasant, but you're like, not now. Like, and a big thing is just like seeing somebody be goofy or seeing, I think that would make a big.
So we have a little like about 25 minutes left. I want to get into like some tactical stuff because these are all good ideas and I want to do every single one of them. But like realistically, we have a reboot coming up, so let's figure out which ones we can do, which ones we can do like further on in the future if we can't finish right now. I will forget. And we'll jot some stuff on the board. We'll put some stuff online so that way we have like a set idea of what we're doing next week.
Yeah. This is a direct departure from previous town hall where we decided to keep the big kitchen table, but I want to axe the big kitchen table and go back to small tables. I want to axe it. I think it contributes to noise. Sure. Anyone disagree? I'm surprised. I thought people would be like,
no, I'll agree to that. That it
people talk across.
People talk across
It increases the volume.
Right, like the kitchen is always going to be where socialization and noise radiate from. Like you can't, right, and that's like a normal human thing. Like I have friends that like throw big parties and they spend like enormous energy trying to get people out of the kitchen ever, and they've given up. There's like no welcome to our kitchen party. But so like that doesn't mean we have to lean into it completely. And
but I think we could axe the big tables, and also I think it would have a nice side benefit of encouraging people to sit next to each other in small tables, versus like you can sit diagonal from people and not talk. But I wanted to get that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Having just joined, I kind of like the big table is kind of a way. It's kind of like a mixing pot, and kind of I feel like maybe it contributes to the sense of community. And I don't have like the counter example, but it just seems like otherwise maybe it's more cliquishness.
I wonder.
We could split it.
I was gonna say we can
Yeah,
split
we're
it.
splitting it too.
We can split it into two. And the other thing is having. I think this we've got the same tables that are in the kitchen are the ones that are over here in the gallery. And I think getting more of those for here, as well as like let's have those more of those options where you can sit down next to somebody without feeling like you're cramped up next to them. I feel like that could address. I'm with you 100% that like having a place where everyone is sitting and you know like people just removing the choosing like I can completely sit here is pretty valuable. So I think maybe finding a way to have both would be great.
Amanda was.
I want to second the axe to the big table because one of the things that used to happen in the old space that I actually really missed is we had all the round tables, and when there were a whole bunch of people hanging out at lunch, we just pushed them together into a big table.
Sure.
And I kind of missed that.
I say I like having the big tables for after hour stuff because it seems like a lot more people with night owls do our projects. We have to lay out a bunch of stuff across two tables. Maybe splitting them in half might work, and you can just push them together for night owls.
Yeah, but I mean that's all, they're not bolted to anything.
Yeah.
Like, we can split them like if the goal is to split them by default and then we push them together for things. Some people who push them together know that putting them back for the next morning is the ideal move. Or whoever comes in the morning is knows who's together separated again. I think it's fun. Have our big meetings.
Jess had her hand up.
Same as I said, I was just saying, yeah, I remember in the old space how we all push it together. So it's like, why give it? We're just going to push it together. But yeah, if you said like after hours, really push it.
When we did dinners, we went to like would be like 8 round desks and any flex desks that were here. We was like giant Pangea of Indy Hall desks to down how to do it.
The nice thing is we do split with more people. But right now we have a big table, but not everyone can fit around the big table. Where if you have that both sides.
Speaking of which, everyone, open house tomorrow, pizza lunch.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, for the record, the pizzas came from a place called Pan Pizza.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of it.
I ordered that shit yesterday, and it's hella expensive. And they're giving us 20 free pies.
What?
So,
Including vegan and gluten free.
Yeah.
What?
yeah, 10 vegan, gluten-free, 10 meat.
Anyway, back to tactical. Just had to open house, bring your friends.
So glad you brought that up.
So it's up on the board, but I just want to like point to to it, or mail area
Oh,
reorganization?
how?
Yes, well,
Great
A,
question.
curious. The thing I'm specifically thinking about is maybe having a like dead letters area for like there are a lot of packages that people have not picked up in a little while, and I'm not saying like we're gonna throw out your stuff, but like I'm very much like, oh, my thing's gotten delivered, and I like
Glacier
pounce on
storage.
it.
They go to
Um,
Glacier.
Right, perfect. Yes, glacier storage. And point being, like, to separate out, like, once it's been sitting there for a bit, getting it away, I think will make it a lot easier for those who are picking up packages more rapidly to like get in, get their stuff, get out, instead of like, what's this? Nope, that's not mine.
Speaking to the reorganization of that, I think what anyone would possibly need is finding that balance between having that stuff be out of sight so it's not an eyesore, but close enough so people can access it and see their stuff.
I actually like
it is-
where it is.
Yeah, I like where it is too. It's a weird point of contention.
I don't think you need it out of sight. I think literally just having a line on the ground and being like old new, and just like every so often somebody like pushes the stuff that hasn't
Or
been
just
picked
kind of
up
like
in a week
the
over.
fridge of like when stuff is there longer than a week, like I throw it in the trash.
Well, something
Push it to the side.
to bring up, not all of the boxes over there are mail, but that's a part of that. Not all of that is like an active package waiting to be picked up.
So I want to pause on the mail conversation because we've been chewing on this for literally the whole time I've worked here and have not found a good way to organize them. But if there are people that are really passionate about organizing this mail, I want to talk to you.
Yes.
Because I put that on the board because we've done the whiteboard, it doesn't work, holidays are coming, but winter is coming. Nico, I saw your hand and then Ariel.
I check my mail every day. There are letters there. They're 3 months old and WOs. And it's there. I know it's more work. Is there any way we can message people? There's more work.
We can, and it's more work.
Yeah,
And
it's more work.
we do.
Yeah.
But I've been pretty consistent about going through and cleaning out what's obvious junk mail. And then when somebody's got, especially when somebody has multiple things, I'll send a direct message. Sometimes it helps. It's a tricky thing, and I'll say, like, all of my friends that run co-working spaces are perplexed by this as well.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, there's not, this is a $1 billion opportunity, my friends.
Yeah, we're talking about
Johnny said opportunity, this is the one. Fucking all's gonna catch it.
At conferences, people have panels.
It's ridiculous. Ariel, then Jess.
So I forgot, one thing that Sam and I talked about was creating like a meditation sort of space in here, where it's like a floor area. I don't know how we can block it off, but I put out a call to my Facebook, and of course my mom was the only one who responded. And I don't think it's like the perfect solution, but it's something. So I have to figure out when I can drive to the city. But I have a bunch of old outside chair cushions that are not being used. They're very floral. They're not quite like calming, but they're free. So I thought I could bring them in at some point. If anyone else has any sort of like little rug, an area rug in your house, maybe we could collect them and create like a space and cushions and block it off with like some of the folding. I don't have any of the folding walls, but I have cushions I can bring. We're still installing.
As long as we can dedicate that space to Jag talent.
One thing that I'll say related to both Maria's comment earlier about privacy, as well as that, is when we laid out the space when we moved in, and even after we rebooted, if you look around, it's very hard to find a corner that doesn't have stuff in it. I would like to make that go away. There's more in this space than I think there are in any other part of Indy Hall. That whether that's putting a sofa there, whether that's putting like a visual chairs people can sit in. You know, I imagine like tall back, soft, comfy chairs you could sit in. A corner where maybe there's a soft place to sit on the floor. Even having desks and tables. But let's be smart about how we use our corners. I think that's one of our best assets. Creating something that feels like privacy. Corners feel kind of like a hug, in a way. And I know right now a lot of our corners are being, all they're hugging is like a pile of boxes or something like that. So let's, as we're moving things, if you notice a spot where maybe that spot could be usable in a really interesting way or valuable way, the only reason it's not is because there's stuff
Two quick things. With the back to the mail, I was thinking, I don't know if I mentioned it before, maybe doing like a day, like how we do clean out Bridge Day, and just post in the channels like, hey, it's pick up your mail day. And at the same time, they can clean out whatever crap they've had sitting in there for a week or two that they're not going to eat.
Don't you think that the people who would pay attention to that would have already gotten their mail?
Well, it's a nice reminder though, like if you, I know some people go away on vacation, then come back and forget they even ordered anything. And then it's just been sitting there for like 3 weeks. I don't know if that would help, but it was an idea that's, it doesn't take much effort to just, along with.
Certainly, I think making it a holiday.
To echo what everything Sam said, if you have any thoughts on the mail, I want to be a part of that conversation. It doesn't have to be right now.
I think there's like room to try basically anything.
Yep.
Basically.
And the second thing was, I was wondering if we can make like a video game cart. I know a few people here have different video game systems, and after hours we like to just sit around and play. I was wondering if we could make like a cart that we can move around, that's on wheels, and would have multiple systems in it, controllers, so that way we can just plug into the TV and then remove it away from the TV and get it away.
Yeah, I know game mechanics are getting together after this.
Well,
playing a lot of games.
I had a vision of like those TVs and high school or when they was baby
What was the show about the boat?
The Mimi?
It's the voice of the Mimi.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We can get a
Ben
laser
Affleck.
disc.
Breakout role.
I have I think an easy mail solution.
Yeah.
One of the things like if you share a mailbox with me, you probably know who I am because I probably brought you your mail. It's an easy way to talk to people and keep the mailbox clear because it drives me nuts when there's too much in my box. So I just take mail to people.
Maybe having, if you don't know who somebody is, maybe having like a whole directory of photos next to the name that get mailed.
Scavenger hunt.
I like that idea a lot. You have to wear a neon jacket.
Well, maybe we should keep the neon jackets next to the mail so that you can put them on.
They're like crossing.
I'm just adding costumes to the list. Katie's hands for that.
So to kind of shift from the mail, because I know that's like a bigger, longer thing that we probably can't solve in this meeting, but I think it should continue. So back to what you said about corners and like the tactical thing, I kind of feel like we should have more corners. Like, I don't know what's on the table as far as what we can do with the space, but I don't know. I think some people might like airy space. I don't really need to see that window though on the far wall. Like, I wonder if like something to kind of keep it open and airy, but like bring in some like more like purposeful, like if there was a tapestry idea for in here, but if we need like more shelving, we could like divide up the room a little bit with shelves or something. Like if there's something purposeful we can do that's not just like putting up a cubicle wall.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but I feel like there's
I
gotta be
really like
something.
tapestries. I'm kind of anti-cubes because cubes then are filled with stuff.
Yeah,
And stuff is like mind clutter.
But something you can like lean on, or like something you can put a table up against, or like something like if I want like if you want, because I think that other people would be interested in this. I have feelings about cubicles. I think everyone does. Something I loved about one cubicle I worked in once was that I could just pin stuff up like everywhere, and sometimes I just like you just want a wall near your workspace. You can just put something up so you can like look at it and decide if you hate it, or like it's like there are a lot of designers in this space, and I think that is the thing that could also be a thing.
Just to yes
put up
and
walls.
that briefly. And this is more to evolve the idea. Also think about top walls. Like it doesn't need to necessarily be floor to ceiling.
No.
It could be hip height where you're sitting down and it still gives you a little bit of a ridge above. Essentially.
I'm trying to think specifically about like how people brought up a lot of privacy. I'm trying to think tactically about.
Just a heads up, we've got 10 minutes until we hit an hour of meeting, 4 minutes. So that doesn't come.
We've got Amanda, Kelly, and Abby.
Another thought about desk arrangements, kind of from what you're saying, and it's more possible in this section than it is over there, but having some desks that just face the wall, so that you just have like a blank area in front of you without a lot of visual distraction would be nice.
I would like that.
Yes.
I just want to plus one the idea of like a half wall, just as somebody that's like short.
I was wondering if you were gonna say that.
No, I just like half the reason that I love living in Philadelphia is because I like going in New York. I get really claustrophobic because I can't.
Is it half the reason?
It's half the reason. No, but I like the idea of having some kind of wall to be able to focus because like where I sit right now, I'm constantly doing this, like watching people come in and watching people leave. It's a really bad spot for me to sit. But I like the idea of being able to like pop up like a gopher, like, or, you know.
I almost imagine like from maybe pillar to pillar is more than we need, but off of the pillars near the entrance, because no matter what, that entrance is going to be a high traffic area, and if that's the case, then the entire other half of that stretch, we can do something to make it friendlier to use, and also like easier to like for walking in the door for the first time, you know where they are and where to go next.
It's just nice to have the option to be able to look around you, like rather than having to look around a wall.
Yeah.
Versus like.
Yeah.
I think you should get a bunch of big monitors and that are really tall. For
God,
every
no.
Usable wall.
Abby and Ben? I was going to say one of the things we talked about in here as an alternative to, or as an idea for a mall, was, I know that that gets cluttery fast, but being intentional about it and having like Rob Deckle was saying that he would want to have the previous wall books there.
Books that are used. Like that was the feedback I had. Or like books like that are next to chairs and rug, so a reading area.
And again, like
The mistake we've made in the past with shelves was full type of shelves.
Yeah.
Because they end up being full cluttered because it's a lot of stuff. Also, they're specific hazards. And
Yeah.
so having them freestanding out against the wall makes it really hard to have walls or other height items. Two half-height bookshelves with a plant on top suddenly makes. Actually, let's throw that. I want to give Jewel a credit for an idea he threw out. Me was when you look at this the end of any pod. If there's not a person at desk in there, you basically look under the desk and it's just like a mess of beads and cables. And it would be really nice to maybe have a consistent, nice looking potted plant at that sort of end of a pod. So as you're walking through the space, you've got something that looks nice, but it also sort of conceals the craziness that's underneath.
Weird that the plant thing is like the maintenance of the plant thing.
So what if they're not real plants?
Or we talked about making a little chart for Timmy to make sure that we don't accidentally overfeed him or starve him. We could easily make a similar thing for plants. Hey, I was last fed.
Jess is really good at that.
Sweet.
Watering things. He's a
Ben?
champion waterer.
I was just going to say, in support of half-height walls, that as a relatively tall person, a lot of things that are intended as like tall but not literally to the ceiling things, I can still look over, which is actually really uncomfortable. Like when I'm serious, when like other people like are thinking they have privacy, and for me as a tall person, I'm like, oh hello. Like it really, I don't like it. Like things that are, let's say, like 5 feet tall, I actually like really don't like, because I know that people sitting on the other side of it feel like they have, feel like they have privacy, and I know that I'm like looking at them, and it's not like I'm, perfect or something. Yes.
So something about the walls is we have an entire Pinterest from when we were playing to move of all kinds of movable wall ideas, ranging from plant walls to the hanging fabric, which Abby made one of those, but unfortunately Abby was the only person that we had to sew them, so that kind of bottlenecked. To like all kinds of wacky, like impossible Pinterest ideas to ones that are actually possible. So we'll share this board again when we do like our recap post. And I would love to like have some gung-ho movable wall people that want to like try some stuff and experiment during Reboot or maybe after, and just say like, we want to do this thing, here's what we need, and we can go, yeah, that makes sense, that sounds good, or we can go, yeah, that's impossible, that's a Pinterest idea. Yeah? Cool.
I have something I want to bring up. I would love a helper sort through some of the monitors that we have in the corner. Some of them are great. Some of them we don't know which. So we gotta test them and see which ones.
And those should have better multiples for the early.
Yeah. I think having them on the desks, like the what do you call the tan desks? The flex desks, yeah, like make a lot of sense. I would have loved that. I'm a full-time member now, and I love not having to put my monitor away. And I think that's especially like if people are in on different days, you're only in 1 day a week or whatever, and you just want to plug in, and then somebody else plugs in the next day. I don't think it would be that. Maybe I'm being optimistic. I don't think it would be that cluttery.
As long as we can convey that desk is open.
Yeah, like maybe we label it or something.
Also, I'll say whenever I'm a part-time member and whenever I see a desk that has stuff on it, a monitor, I won't sit on it, even if it's like the place I want to sit. I'm like, oh man, someone left their stuff there. Like I can't. It would deter me.
I should say like you can sit here, something.
Or like colored tape around the edges of the monitor. Like if a monitor has yellow tape or whatever, like that means the community.
Yeah.
We have
when I was a flex member, I would like if I walked in and there was this unlabeled monitor sitting on a flex desk, I took it.
Yeah, Jason had an extra standing desk that's like movable, and we just mounted one of the random monitors that were sitting back there on it and put public on it. And people have been using it pretty often, so it's been a nice add-on.
Did anyone bring up I can't remember that aesthetics at all? Like color?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit. Cool. My second that I really want to color my life. I'm wondering whether I'm in Apple or not. And I get real confused because I look at my computer and I'm like, how do I apply it?
We're gonna do this while as a magic guy.
Yeah, I mean, even if we just like put like shapes
Isn't that the opposite?
streamers on
Yeah,
that,
it's kind of the opposite. We talked about it space, and it's a little bit. We were saying like visual quiet over here. So, but yeah, I mean, it can be anything.
I'm just saying like streamers.
Yeah, totally.
So the opposite.
Visual quiet is important. I would say warmth is needed.
Yeah, I mean even the plants are very kind of colored. Yeah. It's hard because you can't really have a lot of art up without walls. And I think thinking much about color but texture as well. The one idea we proposed a couple of times is getting solid colors of a nice textured fabric and having that be the wall behind you in a phone room or one of your bigger walls in a conference room.
That's the first thing I wrote.
Curtains in phone rooms I read is different, but I understand what you were saying.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the nice thing about that is it's also easy to rotate and change. Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour. As always, this is the beginning of a conversation. But I feel like we've got some good ideas of like what we want to do for Reboot.
And I would say that one of the things we also talked about was planning another one of these kinds of conversations, one of these meetings, for much sooner after this upcoming reboot. Let's tighten up the feedback loop. We definitely slipped on that, and I think that's turned into good ideas that if they don't get executed right away, don't get executed at all until they get brought up in frustration, which is a sign that we're waiting too long. So I think if we tighten up that feedback, and having something, I can see us having something really honestly as soon as we should have it before the holiday season hits in, because we all know that we all become a different kind of distractible during that. So I'm thinking that with our recap list, we should have a date set for
Probably early November.
First 2 weeks in November for another conversation to say, okay, the things that we did, how did they work? Is there anything that we've done since the reboot itself? Is there anything that is started but unfinished? Is there anything that didn't get prioritized, should have, how it needs to be? And what did we learn from some of these new?
I missed the thank you whiteboard we had. Like, people just write each other notes and all, and it's feel the color back, right? Based on some people.
And it could be a movable wall.
And you. That never came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right. This was really, really helpful for us, and I hope it was really helpful for all of you. I'm I'm really thankful that we are a group of people that can have these conversations and get excited about making something that isn't great better. And going back to Johnny's comment from earlier, look at everything that's going on in all this space and the way we use it as an opportunity. So thank you.
And Reboot is Friday the 13th.
Hey, before everybody takes off, I just totally forgot. Gabe had mentioned something to me before town hall, and he had an idea that he wanted to run past everybody while we have a captive group.
Yeah.
So
just take like a minute. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gabe. I work with guys over here on IncenseFit, and what we do is we're trying to start a we pay people to exercise. And so, so basically, financial motivation for exercise is paid for by employers. We launched our second product called Challenges, basically using social motivation to get people to do healthy things. So we thought it'd be really fun to run a competition or challenge amongst the Indy Hall community around a sort of thing. It could be around steps, it could be taking stairs into work, it could be about cycling, push-ups in the machine space for people who are doing that, pretty much anything else. So we'll probably start like a group buzz or Slack chatter about it, so we're hoping to launch it in a couple of weeks. And it'd be cool to get everyone's feedback on what they want to do and just feedback on our app.
And prizes.
Yeah, what do we win?
Oh, prizes, yeah. So depending on what challenges we're going to run, incentive would be willing to like stock, fridge, computer, things like that. Or also
the best fitness incentive.
Yeah, like maybe come down. Buy us donuts. Or it needs to be green catering.
We were thinking like depending on like the level of participation, would be willing to make donations to charity. Yeah. So that's the thought we had, but we wrote down those things as well. We have a limited budget for the next month.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no.
Well, because